So vendors are one of the top risks, right?
Yes, yes, it is. And by
In
the
more
way, we're
ways than
live.
one.
We're live now. So we will get started in a few moments. But here's our pre show banter, so called. I learned that from our friends at Black Hills Information Security when I was a guest on their live streams, which I never even thought that was a
Uh,
thing, but it's a thing.
yeah. Funny.
It is. Now, okay, so again, you're gonna watch the comments, right? Just as let me know if people have questions. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm going to get ready to run the countdown.
This could be it could be daunting to try to do this because I know we just met with someone the other day who said they had hundreds of vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way. That's kind of the way our modern economy works. Is we just outsource so much.
Large orgs must have someone who just manages vendors.
Sometimes there's a team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Several people, and sometimes
IBM.
that team is distributed by region of the world or what have you.
Do you think there can be justification for saying, okay, we need this, but this vendor just brings too much risk?
Yeah, um, I I think that that's a big important business decision. Let's talk
Mhm.
about it as we get going. I'm going to do the countdown. Here we go. Okay, nothing like a fancy countdown to make you feel like things are really starting to happen. Hey, everybody, I'm Kip Boyle. I work at a company that I founded called Cyber Risk Opportunities. I'm a chief information security officer. This is Lisa Shaw. Let's see. There.
Hello.
Lisa's
Here
our
I
executive
am.
director. Yep. Thanks for being here, Lisa. Oh, I love your title. It says Lisa, executive director. That's great. That's like
Ta-da.
boom, right on the nose. All right. We're really glad you're with us. Thanks for joining. I can see we already have a comment from Nick.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's see. What does he say? I saw a speaker on here talk about third party risk has been getting thrown out the window. Seems to be a pretty common talking point.
Ooh.
Well, I was just telling Lisa during the pre-show banter that this is so common in our modern economy is just to outsource everything, and so there's
Mhm.
just so much of this going on, and but let's talk about what we can do about it. I've been working in this problem space for years and years and years, and so what we want to do today is bring some suggestions to you, and specifically what we're going to focus on is a method for evaluating the security of your suppliers, your vendors, your third parties, and we're going to give you a worksheet. And so today, as I present the material here, just know that we're going to be building all the way up to this worksheet, and we're going to spend some time looking at the worksheet, how you can use it to evaluate your vendors and do a better job of figuring out just how much vendor risk do you have, and then what are you going to do about it. And I'll even suggest an approach for dealing with it and for scaling it, because some people have dozens of vendors, some have hundreds, some have thousands. How in the world do you tackle that? It's a lot. And we're going to do all that within the context of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework version 2. Version 2 is got a really robust supply chain security activity in it, and we're going to take a look at that, and we're going to use it to create our approach for assessing and securing our vendors. So, yep. So here we go. Some of you might have seen on LinkedIn when I originally posted that we were going to do this live stream, this particular graphic that I've got up here, right? And what's the idea? Well, your defenses might be great, and you might be really good at detecting incidents, responding to them, recovering from them. But how good are your vendors at doing this? And the data that we're looking at that's available to the public, no matter what source you go to, the data shows that most of the data breaches are attributable to a vendor dropping the ball. So we know this is a hot point, but the way we deal with it is so very different, isn't it? When we secure our own organization, we have direct access to the people, to the processes, to the tech stack. But when we think about how can we get our vendors to be secure, we don't have direct access to any of that stuff. What we have to do is manage all that through contract vehicles. So we're at an arm's length away from what's really going on. Sometimes more than that. Sometimes there's thousands of miles between us and the people that we've outsourced functionality to. So there's a lot to consider here. Now, I want to begin by just baselining the NIST Cybersecurity Framework version 2. There's 6 functions. You can see them in this graphic here. And in version 2, we've got govern as a new function. There's 22 activities and 106 outcomes. Well, that graphic doesn't really show you the hierarchy, but here's a good graphic that I pulled straight out of the NIST publication that does show the hierarchy. And I think this is super helpful. Now, one thing that I tell everybody, and I want to mention it now, is each of these hierarchical elements has a label, right? So we've got on the left-hand side, we've got our 6 functions. And then at the second level of detail, we've got these categories. There's 22 of them. And then at the third level, we've got these subcategories, and there's 106 of them. But you'll notice I didn't say that in the previous slide. I called them activities and outcomes. All right? And why, Lisa, do you remember why I do that?
I do, because when you talk to other people in the organization, categories and subcategories don't really mean as much. Activities and outcomes, people respond to that better.
That's right. Yeah. So, yes, not only do you listen to me, but you remember. That's
I
awesome.
do.
And I'm not saying that because you are less than. I'm saying it because I talk at you so much.
Yeah. Well, I'm not the technical person on the team. I'm more the people person.
I
So
know. And I love that.
I definitely like the activities and outcomes better. It just resonates with people better.
Yeah. Categories and subcategories are almost meaningless. They're sterile, bureaucratic, kinds of words, and they have no definitive meaning. But yeah, activities and outcomes, managers get that, right? We have
Mhm.
functions, we have activities, and I need outcomes. It's just a better fit for them. Okay, so let's continue just baselining ourselves on the framework. Now, the supply chain activity, the supply chain security activity, lives underneath the govern function. So let's refresh ourselves. What is the govern function? Here's the actual definition that I copied straight out of the NIST document. But I don't like this definition. I think it is also kind of bureaucratic and cold and difficult to discern. But there are 6 activities in this area, and you can see that last one, cybersecurity supply chain risk management, that's the one we're really going to focus on today. Now, there's all kinds of goodness in those other 5 activities, but we'll talk about them some other time. And if you want to, get into some of this stuff, you can go back to one of our previous live streams because we've covered different aspects of the govern function before. So go check out some of our previous live streams. Now, the supply chain risk management activity. Here's the actual definition again. Copied it straight out of the document, but I consider this to be cold and bureaucratic and kind of like ciphertext, right? What does this mean? I don't know. It's a mystery. But this is what it really means. All right. We've been doing the NIST cybersecurity framework. We've been implementing it with customers, paying customers now for over 8 years. And we started with version 1 of the framework. We transitioned to 1.1, we transitioned to 2. We've seen this a lot, and we've had to interpret it, and this is our interpretation. Know your top third-party cyber risks, mitigate them, know when they change, and be ready to deal with failure, right? That's our practical, person on the street, boots on the ground interpretation of this activity. Okay, so Lisa, are you ready to start unpacking this scoring template? And I know you saw it very briefly
Mhm.
before we started going today, but I think this is going to be really cool because what people often say to us is, "Oh, the framework's really interesting, but I don't know how do you make it practical? How can I do anything
How do
with
you
it?"
wrangle it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. How do I get it pointed in the right direction and make it do
Mm.
something for me? Well, that's what today's live stream is all about. And in fact, all the previous live streams really have the same goal. How can we make the
Mm.
framework do something? And so that's what we're going to do today. And when you get the after we're done today and you see how this scoring template works, you can get a copy for yourself. And all you have to do is just send an email to Lisa. I'm going to give you her email address. Just send an email to her and she'll send it to you and you can use it. No no questions asked, no obligations. It's free.
Mm.
Hopefully it helps you make decrease risk, right? Decrease cyber risk. Okay, I want to decode a handful of the outcomes or the subcategories. If you're just hanging on to subcategory with a death grip and you're not letting go,
Mm.
my hope is I'm going to convince you that you should let go. Now, the first outcome that I want to talk about that we've incorporated into the scoring template is this one here. Suppliers are known and prioritized by criticality. And in each of these outcomes that we walk through, and there's only going to be a few of them, 6 or 7, I think. I'm going to have some red text across the face of the slide, just kind of summarizing what each one of these things is calling you to do. Now, this one's not that difficult to understand, but look at this one. Ah, it's a wall of bureaucratic legalese, and I don't even want to read it.
It's loaded.
It's so loaded. There's probably like 10 things that you need to do in here. And the big thing that I get from studying this over time is embed your requirements in your contracts. That's really the bottom line. There's more in here, but if you just do that one thing, you're going to be way ahead of the game. Omar, I'm looking forward to getting a copy of the template, is the comment that I'm seeing that he put in there.
Yes.
We are definitely going to give you Lisa's email address so you can get your copy. And I hope you like it. And if there's anything about it that could be better, just let us know. We love to improve this stuff based on people's real experiences using it. Okay, so here's the next outcome. This is number 6. And I'm not going to read these things to you. I'm just going to tell you what the bottom line is. Make sure that before you sign the contract, you know what you're dealing with in terms of the risk of using this vendor, right? Don't let the business paint you in a corner to the point where they come to you at the last minute and say, all we need is a signature, and we can't do that until you say that they're good. So will you say they're good? How fast can you say they're good, Kip? I mean, I've seen, I've had people do this to me all the time. And in the beginning, I would kind of crumple, right? I'd be like, oh, well, I don't want to be the one holding up the deal. So I'll just do something really quick. But I learned over time that that's not good. Now, the way you should deal with that, by the way, is don't hold up the process at the very end just to be spiteful, but tell them, look, if we've got to do the due diligence. There's no shortcut here. But if you would just tell me sooner, we could start the due diligence sooner, and then we can be done faster, right? So make sure you educate the people that you're working with. Here's number 7. Oh my gosh, another massive mouthful. what it's really saying is you need to monitor. It's not just about onboarding vendors, it's about keeping an eye on them over time. And you're going to have to do that through your contract. Now, the way I got good, I won't say that I'm awesome, but the way I got good at this is I partnered with our contracts manager. So I first started learning about this subject when I was in the Air Force and I was working on the F 22 program, and we were buying billions of dollars of things, goods and services, and the pieces and the parts to actually build the airplane. And this is when I first learned about this idea of, hey, you've got all these suppliers and they're doing these crazy high secure things for you. How do you know that they're protecting your data and protecting the integrity? And then later on, when I was in the private sector, I worked at an insurance company, and I made good friends with the contracts manager there, and he's the one who helped me make sure that I knew how to get all the right things in the contract so that I could monitor my vendors. Okay. Oh, there's somebody who said, it's great to be here, even though I'm retired." Oh, well, you can't be too retired if you're tuning into our live stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy to have you here. Okay, outcome number 9 is different and yet very similar to number 7. And it really just comes down to monitor your vendors. Have a way of knowing what they're up to. And you're going to have to do that probably through your contract vehicle. Here's number 10. Now, one of the things I love about the framework is it really puts a lot of emphasis on life cycle. And you can see it here, right? If you remember, just a few slides ago, I talked about doing due diligence, right? So in the life cycle of working with a vendor, that's early, right? In the life cycle, it's before you've crafted a deal with them. And then we talked about monitoring activities, and now we're talking about, well, the day will come when you don't work with that vendor anymore. And have you considered that in advance? And do you know how you're going to gracefully move them off and cut off all their access to your sensitive data? And that's kind of what this is about. Okay, all the background stuff's taken care of. It's time to get to the meat of it. And it only took me 15 minutes. I'm getting better. Okay, now, this is a Google Sheet. First of all, I'll tell you that. And what I've done is I've just made a screenshot of it. And I'm going to show you the different bits and pieces of this spreadsheet by going through these screenshots. I think I've got 3 or 4 screenshots, and I'm going to be able to, I think, explain this to you just by talking to it. All right, first of all, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, see where it says purpose? All right, read that. That should track very well with what we've just covered, the things that the cybersecurity framework is asking us to do. Now look, there's a scoring scale. So beginning in section 2, there's some questions that you're going to ask about each vendor. And then depending on the answer, you're going to assign them a number. So let's look at that question number 1. Does the supplier have direct access to your production systems or internal network? And here I said, I just kind of threw a value in there, and I just put 1 in there. And what does that mean? Well, it means that there's a weak or incomplete dimension to that, right? So what this means is, yeah, they do have direct access to our production systems and internal network, and it's not very well secured, or we're missing the requirements to secure it because they're not in the contract. So you may have to adapt this a little bit for your purpose, and you should. When you get this, you'll be able to make a copy for yourself, and then you can change it so that it can be any way you want. But I started with this basic scoring system here, 0 through 3. Now, section 1, you're just going to put the supplier name, what you're getting from them, who the business owner is in your organization, and then the date that you're doing this assessment. So, Lisa, what do you suppose a business unit owner, what is that? Do you know? Have I ever mentioned that to you, or maybe somebody else has?
I would think the person in the org that needs this vendor for their
You're right.
work.
Yeah, you're right. So let's quick example. If I've got a director level person who owns customer service, they might be trying to outsource some of the call center functionality. So if this was a call center service supplier, then the business unit owner would be that director in my organization, right? The director of customer service. Yeah, perfect.
Hey,
Great.
Kip, before we go on, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think that this should all be done through email or through questionnaires, or do you think a conversation is important? Why or why not?
Yeah, now you get into scalability. And it's a natural thing to wonder, yeah? Because if I've got thousands of vendors, because I work at a multi billion dollar company, this template's not going to work. I
Mhm.
don't have time to do this. There's too many vendors, and this thing here just is not going to scale. So, not only is the template going to have to be changed, but some of the things you just asked, like, well, Kip, should I get on the phone with them? If I've got thousands of vendors, I can't do that. So
Unless
that's
you have
going
a
to
team.
maybe if I have a team, but even if I've got a team, if all they do is spend all their time talking to vendors and potential vendors, I still don't know if there's enough hours in the year to
Maybe you want to just
talk to
talk
all
to
of
your
them.
most critical ones.
Yeah, there you go. That's the answer. You want to understand criticality. And that's what this template is trying to get at. But I just want to acknowledge that this template may not work when you have thousands of vendors, but the
Yeah.
idea of the template is something that you want to hang on to. And I'm going to tell you more about that once we get through talking about the template. But that's a great question. Okay, now beginning in section 2, there's questions, and each question throughout the entire template has a unique number, right? So you can see we got section 2, question 1, 2, 3, section 3, question 4, 5, 6, and it all works the same way. You read the question, you think about who the supplier is, and then you assign a score. And you may have to gather evidence in order to know what the score should be. Maybe you've got to talk to a representative from the vendor, or maybe you've got to talk to your business unit owner. You're going to have to figure out, where am I going to get this information from? Section 4, due diligence. 3 more questions, uniquely numbered. Section 5, ongoing monitoring. And you'll notice that that's outcome 7 and 9. And then section 6, offboarding readiness. At this stage, we're not offboarding anybody, but we're asking ourselves, when that time comes, are we ready? And you can look at all the questions in there. I'm not going to read all those questions to you here. I think that would be awful. That would make this live stream truly terrible if I read all this to you. So I'm not going to do that. But I hope you can see, right, that each section corresponds to one of the outcomes that we looked at. And each outcome has at least 3 questions that helps you dig in a little bit to find out what's really going on. And the last section here, number 7, is, notice you'll get a total score. Here their total score is 8 points. But there's 54 points that you could get. Now that means that this vendor only accumulated 15% of the total points. But if I look at 8 and then I look at the scoring down there, you can see that anybody who gets between 0 and 18 points, they're high risk. And you engage them only with strong mitigations. Then you've got a medium risk category and a low risk category. And this is really getting to what you were saying, Lisa, which is criticality. By doing this due diligence, this worksheet here, you can now start to sort your vendors into 3 different buckets based on criticality. Section 8, this is where you're going to write out maybe the key strengths, the key gaps, and the recommended actions. Now, if you work in a small company or a mid-sized company, this template is probably going to work just the way it is here, maybe with a few changes to adapt it to your organization. But listen, if you want access to this template, there's Lisa's email address right there. I put it on the screen. So take a screenshot right now, or you can access this recording again later. We'll add Lisa's email address as a comment to this video on LinkedIn. And this is also being streamed to YouTube. And I I don't know if I want to put Lisa's email address in the YouTube. That might get you too much spam, Lisa. But but listen, if anybody wants to reach out to Lisa on LinkedIn, send her a direct message. That'd be okay, right, Lisa?
Sure.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. Now, ta-da! Here's the question: how do you scale this approach? Well, actually, it's pretty straightforward. Well, it's straightforward for me to describe. It may not be straightforward for you to do. You may have to, oh my gosh, you might have to talk to somebody else. You might have to go to your contracts manager or your chief legal officer or somebody who works for that person in order to actually figure out, hey, how are we going to do this? But what I can tell you is this approach, I have helped to implement this approach in a number of different organizations. And credit where credit is due. I collaborated with my podcast co-host, Jake Bernstein, to come up with this approach. And he's the one, as an attorney, he's the one that writes the contracts. But I always make sure that they're practical. That's my contribution. So let's take a look at this. So we've got 3 tiers of criticality. And I think this matches up pretty well with these 3 buckets of risk ratings, right? High, medium, low. So if I go back over here, look at tier 3. A tier 3 vendor has general access to sensitive data. Lisa, just by looking at this, would you say that a tier 3 vendor is the most risky or the least risky?
It looks like the most risky.
Not a trick question, right? You got
Right.
it. This is meant to be simple. A tier 3 vendor is gonna probably represent the most risk to your organization. Now, a tier 2 vendor has limited access to sensitive data or general access to non-sensitive data. And I'm also reminded right now that if you work in the healthcare industry and you have a vendor who's considered to be a HIPAA business associate and therefore a covered entity, that probably automatically drops them into a tier 3 vendor because they have either general or limited access to patient health information. So tier 2 or tier 3, right? So be thinking about your context that you're working in. Are there any context clues in your environment that can help you figure out who's a tier 3, who's a tier 2, and who's a tier 1? Now, a tier 1 vendor, minimal access to non-sensitive data or no access at all. Now, a tier 1 vendor, I'll give you a good example, the person who refills the snack bar, right? They don't have any access to data, right? Or the minimal access to non-sensitive data. It's like, well, I know that you're out of chips. But that's not a big deal, yeah? And they probably don't have any electronic access to your systems. And they probably can't get into your facility without either signing in with a receptionist or some other controlled access. So so again, context clues. Be thinking about all your vendors, all your suppliers, and how they interact with your organization.
I have a question, Kip.
Yeah.
If a vendor says, well, I need access, to do the work for you, I need access to, all your sensitive data. Do you ever question that? Do you think there's any value in questioning that? Should that
Oh
just be
yeah.
accepted?
I think you ought to question that. And and if people say something like like if you get challenged, okay, and somebody might say to you, like the business owner might say, like, well, isn't it just the easiest thing just to give them access to everything? That way we don't have to screw around with, setting permissions and what if the vendor can't meet our needs because they're blocked by a permission, right? So this could end up being quite a conflict with somebody in your organization, but yeah, you should definitely ask anyway, right? Be prepared to ask the question, and and be prepared to get pushback. Now, the way I would justify asking the question is a security design principle of least privilege and least access, right? That anybody, no matter who it is, should only have enough permissions on our systems and our data to do their job. So if you've got least privilege as a policy item, then you can refer to that. If you've been training people about how least privilege is a, like a best practice, you can refer to that. Okay? Yes, Omar, snacks are extremely critical, but not from a cyber risk perspective, I don't think. Anyway, so, yeah. So you should expect to get pushback. Now, listen, as a people person, right, Lisa? That's one of the things about having you on our team that I really really love is we've got other people on the team that are very technically oriented, which they should be, but you're here to really keep the focus on the people dimension of the work that we do. So, what advice might you give to somebody who's checking out our live stream right now and they're like, man, I don't want to get into a flame war with a senior decision maker, a director or a senior manager or something.
Mhm.
Like how can I bring this up to them in a way that doesn't make them go crazy? Like what suggestions do you have to help people with that?
Well, I was thinking before about the policies, and I
Mhm.
think about policies as really the foundation of the building, the foundation of your cybersecurity program.
Mhm.
So, I think I would talk about how we have to make sure our vetting aligns with our policies. So, if you have good, solid policies, including, you know, uh, least privilege, least privilege, I think that would support the argument that you need to spend a little time with this vendor to make sure they have just the access that they need, not
Yeah.
access to everything.
So it's not just Kip's good idea.
Right,
It's a company expectation.
right. Because I was thinking when you were going through those slides about how the contract language, is how we have to make sure our policies align, with the vendor, but you might need to work on your policies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another thing I was thinking of, and I would like to get your take on it, is it seems to me that if I already have a reasonably good working relationship with somebody before I go to them to talk about something that they might not really want to hear, that could help
Mhm.
too.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to have a guest on your podcast, the Cyber Risk Management podcast, that's going to talk exactly about that. And he feels like relationships are the most important part of your cybersecurity program. They're really critical. And I know that you had an experience with that early on in your career that was really formative
I
in
probably
how,
had several. Which one are you thinking of?
yeah, come to Jesus one. About how you really need support and buy-in from the
Yeah.
rest of your organization to have a good cybersecurity program. And that
Yeah.
involves all sorts of things. That's a trust relationship that we're not trying to, swing the hammer and ruin everything. We're not trying to, we do have to be sensitive to, you know, uh, people getting things done, not completely bogging down and halting, ventures that are going on. The
Right.
company. We're here to support the company. Not stop the company.
Right.
I mean, yeah. So if when you have that good relationship, with other decision makers, it's a lot easier to bring in good cybersecurity.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, good. So we both agree that good working relationships before the
Critical.
difficult conversations, right, is a critical success factor. So I'm sorry to tell all of you here who maybe you got into cybersecurity because you're here for the pen testing, or you're here to break stuff. Okay, well,
Mhm.
unfortunately, there's a humongous people dimension to this, and if you're going to be a
Mhm.
blue teamer, that is somebody who does defense, well, I think relationships are even more important than if you're a red teamer. Although I would never suggest that human relationships don't have a place somewhere in the work that we do, because it is really all
Oh,
about people. I mean, the people that, the attacks aren't being carried out by autonomous computers. There's people behind all of the attacks. And if you can understand them better, and then maybe you can understand the attacks better. Anyway, I could go on for days about this,
yeah.
aspect of it, but
Well, I think it's a great idea to build a roadmap, to build relationships. And it can just start by, telling people, I'd like to meet you over a cup of coffee and learn more about what you do.
right.
There's a lot of small things you can do to build those bridges.
Yes, but you have to be intentional. If all you're doing is reacting, then that's not really going to set you up for success compared to being intentional. Actually reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, I'd love to know more about you and your work." And why? Well, because I'm trying to support our
Mhm.
business goals and objectives, and that means I need to understand them.
Right.
So,
Right. Because you don't want people going around you
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and finding out down the road after an incident that, this all happened because they didn't want to talk to you.
right. So, buy-in. I love that you said that word, because buy-in is pervasive. And there's a way to get buy-in by using the NIST cybersecurity framework more generally. So I'll talk about that in a moment. But now what I want to do as we wrap up for today is I just want to point you to some free or low-cost resources that'll help you. Well, Lisa, you mentioned that we do a podcast, and here it is. It's called the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Not a very sexy name, but we got all the keywords for search,
Oh.
and that's kind of what I was going for. Anyway, now I picked some episodes. We've done a lot of episodes. We're coming up on our 200th episode, Jake and I, and so there's lots to go and check out. We try to make our episodes evergreen, which is to say it could be 1 year old, 2 years old, and there's still stuff in there that's relevant. Okay, that's what we go for.
Mhm.
Anyway, so just as I was getting ready for our live stream today, I went into our back catalog and I picked out five, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I picked out 5 episodes where we talk about supply chain risk management or third party risk management, and I've got them all listed here. The most recent one is the CrowdStrike episode, where we really got in deep about this. It was this time last year that CrowdStrike pushed an update to its product, and it blew up airlines. It blew up like
Mhm.
the ability of so many businesses to function. It just took them right out. That is an example of what we're talking about here, right? You bought the CrowdStrike product, you integrated it into your environment. They, for whatever reason, pushed an update, and it blew up your tech stack. Now that's not a cyber attack, but it could have been, right? And then we've got some other examples of where it was a cyber attack that took us out. Like Solar Winds is a good example. Move It is a good example. There's a lot of good examples of this. So anyway,
Hey,
so I've got some episodes here that you can listen to help become more familiar with what's going on here.
uh, Kip, I have a question. Did you do an episode on the MGM attack?
Yeah, that's the one where that's the casino one, right?
But that was through credentials being stolen,
It was. Yeah.
manipulated.
Yep. There's so
That
many
was
more
a
episodes. I just picked
that
out
was a
5.
you said the name of the podcast isn't sexy, but I thought that was a sexy episode. It had everything. It had Vegas, it had a
Mm-hmm.
fish tank, a water sensor,
Yep.
it was juicy.
Well, that's an exercise best left for the viewer. But if you go to our website and if you go to cr-map.com/podcast, you'll see all the episodes. And there's a little search function. You can search for MGM, you can search for Move It. Yeah, you can go in there. And I want you to use this collection of episodes that we've made as a resource. There's all kinds of stories in there, and you can use those stories as you try to increase the amount of buy-in that you have for your program and for your specific ideas about how to make your organization more cyber resilient. All right. So there you go.
Uh,
There's that as a resource. What else?
Oscar has a question.
Okay.
Oscar says, I don't want to get us off track too much. Are you able to repeat the information about the relationship discussion you mentioned on your next podcast episode?
Ah, yeah.
Well, it's
W-
not actually the next episode. It's in the works.
It's one of the future ones that are coming.
Yeah.
But we've talked. Jake and I have talked about the importance of relationships for the purposes of buy-in. It's a theme that just runs throughout all of our episodes. We've probably done
Mhm.
one or two episodes specifically on that point. But Omar, you should reach out to me if you want a specific pointer to something that you can study. But we'll be doing more topics,
Mhm.
episode topics on relationships, and specifically how you can create the kind of working relationships that we're talking about right now.
And we really practice that in our work.
Hmm.
Our relationships with our customers are really foundational because we function like part of their team.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
how we work.
that's our ideal is even though we're an outsider. I mean, we're a vendor, right? We think a lot about how we can create the most value for our customers, but also do that without creating a ton of risk for them. And we have a lot of different things we can do, but there's no time to go through them
No.
on this live stream here. Okay, here's another resource for you. It's not free, but it's pretty dang low cost. And this is our Udemy course on the NIST Cybersecurity Framework version 2 and really focused on implementation. So if you liked what we covered today, right, taking these functions, these activities, these outcomes, and actually turning them into something that can actually move the needle for you, well, this course does that, but at a much bigger scale. So, highly
Mhm.
recommend that you consider getting this course, taking this course to make the framework really spin like a top for you.
Yeah.
Here's another resource, especially for Omar. My book. In my book, I talk a lot about the importance of relationships and buy in, and we just published the second edition of the book. So you can go out and grab a copy of it. We have a soft cover version, we have a Kindle version. I'm getting ready to record the Audible version of it. I don't have an Audible version of the second edition yet. You can get the Audible version of the first edition if you want to, but
Mhm.
I don't want to hire somebody to do the Audible version. I really think it's best when the author does their own narration when they can. And I think I've proven I can talk a lot, so I can do this. Okay, another thing you might want to consider doing is signing up for my bi-weekly inflection point bulletin. So this is about a 500-word email. I send it every other week. And I just talk about something that's going on in the world outside of our four walls, right? That you need to be thinking about if you're going to be a good cyber risk manager for your organization. There's all kinds of things that are going on that we may miss because they don't happen front and center to us, but it really affects the threat landscape. And so this is just an easy way for you to find out what's going on. And I also interpret it for you. In other words, what does this mean to risk managers in the big picture, right? I we're all heads down trying to get stuff done. This is a way for you to get perspective. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe real easy. I don't try to trap people into subscribing, and I never sell your information or share it with anybody. So, okay, really glad you all were here. That's the end of the
Mhm.
prepared material that we had for you. So, if there are any questions, we have some time. I would love to hear any questions you have. I'm going to roll back to this slide here because it's got Lisa's email address on it. So if you didn't get it the first time, now
Mhm.
you can take a screen grab of this so that you can get her email address and just shoot her a message and say, I saw the live stream on supply chain defense. Can I have the link to that template?
Right. And also, if you would like the PDF copy of the second edition of Kip's book, Fire Doesn't Innovate, just let me know and I'll send that along too.
Oh yeah, we do have a PDF version. Okay, well there you go.
Yeah.
Now you have no reason not to ask Lisa,
Ask
because
away.
because you'll get the template and you'll get a PDF version of the book for free, which I'm happy to give you. I wrote the book to be helpful, so I'm happy to give it to you if you think it's going to help you, or if you just want to try it, no problem.
Mhm.
Happy to give it to you.
Oh,
Okay.
Oscar says he's going through your Udemy course right now. It's a long one.
Yeah.
It's a commitment.
Thank you,
It's
Oscar.
6 hours, but it's just jam packed. And
And you have permanent access to it. So, once you
oh, I
go
didn't
through
know
it, if you want
that.
to refresh yourself, just go right back. You don't have to pay for it twice. It doesn't expire, right? Access never expires. So, and excuse me, and the price point's really good too. If you get a coupon, you can get that course for like $20, $10,
Yeah,
something
it's
like somewhere in there.
everybody loves a sale. It is on sale sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
But I didn't know
Um,
that about the permanent access, so I learned
mhm.
something today.
By the way, this StreamYard live broadcasting platform that we use for this, I think I've mentioned before that I can see it's interesting. I can see some people's comments here in the StreamYard interface, and some people's comments actually have their name and their photo, and some don't. And remember when we
Mhm.
started, I saw and it said, "Good morning, Lisa and Kip. Great to be here, even though I'm retired."
Yeah,
It just says LinkedIn user, but I opened it up on my phone. It's Peter Hitchler.
that's what I thought too.
Hey
He's
Peter, how
just
you doing, man?
he's he's just newly retired.
Yes. And Peter, we miss
Yeah.
you already. We really enjoyed
Mhm.
working with you. Peter was a customer of ours. We're continuing to support his organization, but really, Peter was the person that we met originally, and I hope you're enjoying your retirement, Peter.
I
And
wonder
and
if he'll
and let's
stay
stay in touch.
retired. I don't know if he'll stay retired.
I doubt it,
Uh,
but let him think he's retired for
uh.
the time being. All right, everybody. Well,
Mm,
listen, if you have any other questions for us, comments, not a problem. You can reach us on LinkedIn or you can email Lisa
mm.
directly, and we'd love to hear from you. So if there isn't anything else, let's go ahead and wrap it up a little early today, yeah?
All right. This was fun.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.